Just makes tell them say prayer works. When the heathens are trying for you, once you die you hurt, the most I alert if I them alone.
Yes, so welcome. Bless up all viewers and subs. Just a check-in, come to share one live with you guys, where this is Jamaican gospel artist Kevin Downswell and the Ministry of Health Christopher Tufton. Well, viewers and subs, bless up all the viewers them over here long time and one them just a forward. Just flex now, keep up no more time. So just watch and listen the video. Me soon forward up top.
And you're the God who cares. You're the God who is touched by the feelings of all our infirmities and everything that we're going through. You are the one who knows and can feel and can touch, Father God. You are the God of our lives. And so we commit this to you now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. First of all, let me just thank you for having me on. Appreciate the prayer and the blessings. And to all your viewers, looking forward to a good conversation around COVID-19 and some of the critical issues. If you will, though, if you permit me just for 15 seconds, just to say, I know that the most topical issue right now is the unfortunate death of a young lady who gave birth a day ago to her baby at Spanish Town Hospital. A lot has been said out there. I'm devastated by what has happened and the rest of the health team. I am waiting on the investigations which I have ordered, and I'm hoping to get the results of those. As a consequence, I don't want to speculate too much until I get that information, because so many things have been happening and was involved in what has led up to this. So I want to just express my deep condolences and sadness to the family members, and just to say again, as I said earlier today, that we will do everything possible to provide counseling to the family members to ensure that the young baby is taken care of. But it's really tragic, very unfortunate. And, Kevin, we just have to manage the process and try to ensure that we bring closure and comfort to all involved.
Yeah, I mean, it really hit home for me. It really affected me. My mother called me this morning, and she said she couldn't sleep last night because of that just one thing. And my mother is a pastor, and it really impacted me. But since we're there, sir, let me ask you the first question in that area. When persons, what should persons do generally if they feel like they're in a position where they're being discriminated against by healthcare professionals and by community members who are suspicious that they have COVID-19? What advice do you have for persons?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the government's position is very clear. We believe in universal access to healthcare. No one, and I repeat, no one should be denied access to healthcare, no matter what color, class, creed, and I could go on. To the extent that persons feel that they are being denied, then they must shout it out as loudly as possible. They can get in touch with my office. They can, we've been promoting the 888 One Love number, which is manned by a number of persons. It's a switchboard number, so a number of persons man that number. And I would recommend that. There is the COVID-19@moh.gov, which is a web email address. And frankly speaking, the vast majority of healthcare workers, I would say 99.999% of them would be willing to listen and to take corrective action, because I believe that we recognize the importance of giving access where access is needed. So call that number if it arises, if that situation arises, and we will take follow-up action immediately.
I believe that gonna ask another question, but I want to just put the icing on the cake for that because I have been in positions where I've been in the midst of watching nurses and doctors respond to very, very serious situations, and boy, I feel it for the mother and for the family members who are feeling the death of this young lady. But I want to also encourage the doctors and the healthcare workers to just continue to be what you have been over the last month and a half. I mean, I don't want that question to take away from the fact that you guys have been doing an excellent job. And I just want to leave that right there. You have been doing an amazing job. And yeah.
Well, you know, Kevin, we work with an amazing team, and you know, I don't claim credit for what we have done because it's our duty to do what we do. And I must say, this is in this particular case, it's a very exceptional and extraordinary, tragic case. Again, I'll wait on the investigations to know exactly what transpired because I don't want to cast blame on anyone or judge anyone unfairly. But what I'll say about our public health system and our public health team is that they go well above and beyond the call of duty to do what necessary. And you're right, we really have to lift our caps off to them and give them all the encouragement. There's so much to do, particularly like this one.
There's a lot. One more question. Next question, sir. Contact tracing. How is the process like, and with that, especially in connection to the Alorica incident? How can you explain contact tracing for us, please, and the process behind it?
Sure. So, in the case of that particular incident in the old+More, St. Catherine area, and explaining contact tracing, you start with the employees who are affected. So, of course, we would have announced that well over 160 or 70 so far of the 870 odd employees have tested positive for COVID-19. There are other tests that are being run, so it could be more. You start with that group, and then the team of public health nurses, community health, public health inspectors, they go together as a group. They divide up into different groups. They interview each of those individuals. And that interview includes where they live, who they live with, where they have gone since the time when they may have had symptoms, who they interacted with, whether it's at the store, at church, in a taxi, their relatives that they visited. And then the team would go use that information and contact those individuals and interview those individuals. And they interview them in a way that looks at their current health status. Do you have a fever, cold? They do temperature checks. How much time have you spent with this individual? And then there is a second layer, because if they feel that that person spent a lot of time with that individual, they could also interview that person about who they have been in touch with. So it could expand significantly. It is a lot of work because it means you have to go into the homes, into the communities. You put yourself in danger, so you establish some rules around engagement because you never know if these other persons are positive. But they work day and night, Sunday to Sunday, to try and establish whether or not this individual would have infected or passed on the virus to other persons. And that's basically what contact tracing is. It's looking at your contacts and tracing or looking for them and interviewing them, and then recommending whether quarantining or isolation, depending on how these persons are and what you think in your judgment they have been exposed to in terms of the risk.
Are you aware of the number of tests that are being done for St. Catherine right now?
Well, for the employees, we've done well over 600 tests the last time I checked, which was about a day and a half ago. It could be that they have done more. I'm sure they would have. Those are the employees. And then for their contacts, they contacted and thought it was important to test around 300 or so. Again, 2 days ago, it's a changing number. So a number of persons who are contacts of these other persons were tested, discussed the issues with, and so on. And so that would be close to 900 or 1,000. Of course, there are other tests that are done in St. Catherine generally, depending on where other positives turn up and the tracing around that. But specifically to that company, it's about, I would say about 1,000 are there.
Someone once asked a while ago, what kind of measures are being done to ensure that St. Catherine's lockdown ends soon? Are you aware of any measures that are being done to put an end to this lockdown?
Well, you know, it's a decision that is taken by the Cabinet of Jamaica, of course, chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister. But it's influenced also by the advice that he receives and the Cabinet receives, advice from the medical team who are on the ground, who also provide information to myself and to the senior management level. And we normally have meetings a few days a week. I keep in touch every day. So it really is, that advice is based on how much progress we have made in terms of the contact tracing, the testing, and how we think we have been able to cauterize or to manage the problem in a way that you won't have a lot of spread. Because what you really want to do is to manage it, to reduce the spread. So far, a lot has been done on the ground. The team has really worked hard. We will meet again tomorrow, as we normally do. And I believe during those deliberations, the Honorable Prime Minister will announce as appropriate whether or not that curfew arrangement will be lifted. So I don't want to preempt the process clearly because I have not been given the final report on what is happening. But it will be a function of how much progress we have made. We are having some challenges, I must admit, in terms of some of the employees because we're trying to move a number of them into quarantine facilities. The reality is, Kevin, and I'll say it here for the first time, many of them don't want to go. And some of them have even hidden themselves from the public health team when we visit them. So you turn up at an address, you hear they don't live there or they have left. And it has been a real challenge. Now, while I understand and appreciate some of the concerns that they raise, the stigma issue, they don't want to leave their home because if they leave it, they don't know what will happen. It really is important for us to get the cooperation. Where they're going is very comfortable and they'll get all the amenities that they require. But more importantly, it will at least allow us a better able to manage the virus so that they can get better and they will reduce the impact of infecting others. So we are having some issues, but we're trying to manage and to overcome those issues. But the Prime Minister will make a decision based on the advice he gets.
And I can understand some of those persons' fear, you know. I mean, I can definitely understand some of their fears. There's a certain expectation that you might have when you're being asked to leave your home and to go to a place where you know other persons might have the virus. So for those who are watching, I can definitely connect with the fear of the whole situation. But let me continue by the other day. For example, I grew up on Maxfield Avenue. I grew up in two major communities. I was born in Savlamar, in a poor farming community. I grew up on Maxfield Avenue for most of my teenage years. There's a community that popped up on the radar a few days ago, Stepney, St. Anne, who they were the members of the community. It's a poor farming community. And when they were being interviewed, they were saying basically them not have any money to take care of hand sanitizer, to buy masks. What you saw was a little man with him drum on him donkey, about to catch some water to come back. what measures have been put in place for these real poor communities who a lot of times are looked past, looked over, and forgotten? And you can connect that with this other question. The online school system and the fact that a lot of these poor communities really can't afford the data and everything that is being requested for them, for their child to learn daily online. Please, can you just shed some light on that for me?
Right. So just to say again, in terms of the people in Portmore and St. Catherine, there's nothing to fear. Work with the health authorities, because it's important that we can work together to overcome this challenge. So I just want to say that, and they're not going to be shut off from the rest of the world. They'll have their phones, they can call, they can communicate, and I really want to make that appeal. On the question of poor communities, you know, you are right. The spread of the virus can become a lot more challenging or represent a bigger threat to densely populated communities that lack basic amenities of like water, that are socioeconomically deprived, they don't have the money to buy the sanitizer and so on. And one of the things that the government is doing and has been doing is developing a program to reach out to those particular communities so that we can create the public education in the first place for prevention. So we're using the flyers and the town criers. The National Water Commission is a big part of the planning in terms of providing basic amenities like water. In the next week or so, we are going to be unveiling a program in conjunction with the private sector and the government. We've been working that out, the PSOJ members, to target some vulnerable communities around the country. Now, vulnerability means that if the virus were to touch down in that community, because of the challenges, the economic challenges, it could spread rapidly, and it could affect, you know, the older population, persons with comorbidities, you know, hypertension, diabetes, and so on. So we not only have to educate and inform them, we have to show them what needs to be done so that they can take action, because ultimately it's really about the action that you take. So while we're doing some of that now, and I work with Minister of Local Government and Community Development, Minister Mackenzie, I work with, you know, the Ministry of Labor and Welfare. Those are key ministries to dealing with some of those local grassroots community issues. And we're going to be stepping that up over the next number of weeks as we plan to manage the very risks that you talk about. In terms of education, Mr. Samuda, who is the minister with responsibility for education, has been working very hard to keep the online education infrastructure going, working with the teachers. There's always going to be challenges in these scenarios because it's an unusual approach to have kids fully learning at home. But, you know, the nature of this virus, Kevin, is that the virus is rare in terms of the experience, and there are a lot of things that we have to adjust. And one of the things I keep telling people is that nothing is going to be foolproof and successful in the first instance. It really is a function of
learning as you go
along.
Right.
Now, in that regard, I want to raise the role of the church because, you know, the church is so embedded in the communities across Jamaica, embedded in some of these inner city communities or poorer communities, as you've mentioned.
Right.
The church has significant influence on people's behavior in these communities. And one of the things that we've tried to do is to reach out. In the early days of this virus, I had a meeting at a hotel in Kingston, Terra Nova, where I invited all the denominations to come together at a full house and spoke about what was coming and why the role of the church would be very important. The Prime Minister has done the same. And we do take note that the church has been very cooperative in terms of just complying with the rules, having online services, but also very importantly, keeping in touch with community leaders and helping them to understand the messaging. And frankly, I'd like to see more of that happen. and where we can work with vulnerable communities and have a role for the church to play, I am very much in favor of that. So even this new plan with the private sector, the church will have a key role to play there. And, you know, listen out, because we're going to go in that direction because of how important they are to those communities.
I agree. I mean, let me ask this question now. With the fact that the church has such a vital role and can play such a vital role in fighting against COVID-19, I've heard a lot of pastor friends of mine lament about the fact that, for example, a lot of those who are in St. Catherine lament about the fact that they have members of their church community who they do weekly give outs to. For example, they do weekly visits to drop some food, do some prayer, especially vulnerable members of the church. And not just that, but a lot of pastors can't do marriages, weddings anymore, can't do funerals anymore because they are on lockdown. And so the question is, if the church and the pastors play such a vital role, why are they not considered essentials?
Well, they are, you know, they are very essential, and part of the rules and terms of engagement has been to provide, give the church some flexibility in terms of its outreach and its communication. And I see where they have been very creative, the pastors and the denominations, in reaching out using the technology. Funerals are allowed, but of course the numbers are restricted significantly.
Oh, funerals are allowed, okay.
Yeah, but the numbers, you can only have, I think, 10, if I'm not mistaken, I think 10
okay.
persons. So we haven't stopped them. But what we have said is that there comes a point now when we have to manage an approach for responsible behavior. And while I fully believe that the church is responsible, they kind of have to, the leaders have to sort of project that on the population and on the communities to get the communities to operate similarly so. So we have not in any way left the church's role out or are evaluating the role of the church. And they give back the volunteerism, the handout. Right. What I would encourage church leaders to do is to coordinate those activities with the Ministry of Labor and Welfare, Social Security, because that ministry is a ministry responsible for give-outs, handouts. And if you work with them on the ground, because they have a presence in every parish, in every community, and then you can tag the activity with that government entity, and you can travel with them to do the necessary handouts. So I hope that they are aware of that. If they are not, then I'd certainly encourage them to make contact and make the appropriate arrangement, because we fully appreciate the important role of the church in these communities and in these circumstances.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you're aware of the situations that a lot of persons, especially in St. Catherine, are facing. My mother, 2 weeks ago, called me in a frenzy because she lives in Spanish Town, and she went out to purchase her grocery on the day that she was allowed, when it was being name categorized. And she went to Spanish Town first to get some money at the ATM and then to get her stuff purchased. The ATMs were empty. A lot of the pharmacies were closed. And so what she recognized is that on the day of shopping, a lot of places are still closed. A lot of places, I'm not sure why, but on the day that everybody in St. Catherine are asked to shop, the places, some of the places that they need the most, for example, the ATM, empty. The pharmacy, closed. I'm not sure if you're aware of that issue that they've been having in Spanish Town and in St. Catherine since the lockdown.
Right. I'm not aware of it, to be honest with you. I know, as you have said, that there are some opening days, and all of this, of course, comes to review tomorrow at our cabinet meeting. So we'll decide how to proceed. but I'll certainly raise the issue and the concern. As you know, last week, the Prime Minister announced some adjustments because of the concerns that emerged with the crowding and the long lines and so on. Again, I say to your viewers and to yourself, you know, this is really an unusual situation for us, as it is for the world. We're kind of learning as we go along. What is very important for people to understand is that we are very flexible in making adjustments where those adjustments are needed. And we have done so in the past. And we are prepared to do so again. The key, of course, is that people understand that the message is about this virus that can wreak havoc on us, can make many of us ill, can take lives. We don't know much about it, enough about it globally. And so we have to take some precautions until we can get a handle on it. So none of us are doing this because we enjoy doing it. In fact, we fully understand how inconvenient it is. But ultimately, we have to act in the best interest of the health and wellness of the population. And that's what we're trying to do. So I'll discuss it, I'll raise that issue, and hopefully we will adjust where necessary to ensure that the citizens are accommodated, including your mother, of course.
Yeah, my mother calls me, you know, she would just call me, you know, so any issue, she would just Kevin, you know, as if, you know, Kevin is gonna just, get things.
Mothers are the same all over.
That's it.
They'll always be, we will always be their children, no matter how old we are. And they'll always give us what they think. And that's good. And that's a very positive thing. And it's good that she's giving you the feedback, Kevin. Big up to your mom and to your family. Yeah. That's important.
Yeah, man. And big up to all the mothers. Big up to all the mothers. You know, I want to just pause to just I want to jump in at the inner city a little bit and the poorer communities, urban and rural, because I know there's a whole lot of challenge that they're having. For example, I grew up, as I mentioned a while ago, on Maxfield Avenue. I grew up in Central Village at one point. I know what it is to be in a 6x4 room with 6 away. 6, 2 bed in that room, and the only thing that can hold in that room is 2 bed and maybe a dresser. I know what it is to sleep for 3 hours asleep on one bed and 3 asleep on the other bed. And I was talking to my wife a while earlier today, and I was saying to her that it is a challenge for a lot of those guys when you when you are being asked to turn your yard to stay in, because and I'm not saying I'm condoning what's happening on the street, the fact that some of them are on the street. But when you live in an inner city and you 5, 6, 10 of you living at the house, and as you move, you're brushing on somebody else, the best place to be is not in the yard, because sometimes there is no yard space. So the best place to be is on the road. When I was growing up in the inner city, the best place is on the road, because at least you have some breathing space. And most of the time, I know everybody in the yard agree. That's the next thing. Right. And so there's a challenge that inner city, when we see them on the streets, and they seem to be, it's not everybody rebellious, you know. I just want to leave that there. So it's not everybody on the streets in the inner city is rebellious. Some of them on the street because they really can't turn your yard mean. There's absolutely no social distancing that can be practiced in the house, right, because they're more at risk in the house than being on the street.
So I tell you, I fully appreciate what you're saying. I was born with a gold spoon in my mouth either, by the way, and I have experienced densely populated areas where I've had to stay. And I remember the days when I much preferred to be on the road than to be in the yard or in the house. And when you look at some of these communities, you know, it's challenging, very challenging.
It is.
It's not only a culture, it's almost, you almost feel like it's a necessity. You almost feel like there's no other way. You know, it's part of the difficulty that we face with this particular disease, because on one hand, you're asking persons to do something that is quite difficult and sometimes almost impractical. But on the other hand, if they don't do something, then the risk of the virus coming into the community, claiming the lives of their mothers and grandmothers, creating much inconvenience and pain and suffering, it almost it's hard for you not to say that this is the way you're going to reduce that risk. Now, how we manage that is going to be a combination of all of our efforts. And that's why we have to find a way to have the influencers in the community, like the church, the community leaders, going in and helping to guide people along a holistic approach. So if 6 people are in a room, and you have to be there because that's where you sleep in the nights and you have no other place to sleep, then the idea of social distancing when you are going to bed is impossible. But it doesn't prevent you from ensuring that you wash your hands clean, that you wash your face clean, that you ensure the hygiene issue, and that if somebody has a cough, you may have to extract that person and say, you can't stay in that room because you have a cough.
We have to make a decision.
We have to stay somewhere else and make we call the doctor quick. So we have to put together an infrastructure, a set of people, which we are working on expanding and enhancing now as part of our COVID response. That's going to help Jamaicans under difficult circumstances to adjust in a holistic way, recognizing the limitations that they have. And I fully agree with you that there are many limitations.
Let me stay a little bit in the because this is where I connect with the most, you know, in a city. This is where I've lived all my life. When a mother, before I ask that question, you mentioned there's a team being put together to look deeper into this, right? That's what you said a while ago. There is a team that
expanding what is already there. Yes.
Okay. Me living in a house with 5, 6 kids. I go on the road, and my hustle is to sell some bag juice or to do something that's my hustle. That's how I earn my money. When I come in, I come in with really $500. I don't have the ability to bulk shop. I only can go to the shop to buy a stick of butter, quarter bread, and big jilla oil. That serves me for the day. In the inner city, people don't shop for a week. People can't shop for a week. They really can. Some of them have it just for the day, to just take care of the day. That's it. Tomorrow, take care of itself. And so, again, that challenge of being in a lockdown, being in quarantine, and having to wait 2-3 days to purchase again. I'm just voicing these issues that I'm seeing on my page,
right,
from these persons.
No, I hear you, and I'm with you. We call it the short earning cycle. People earn every day to live for the next day, and if you shut them down for too long, then they can't earn, and you can't really ask a hungry man to stay indoors and to social distance. They need food. So, which is one of the reasons that the government has really been finding it very difficult, although many have called for it, to say we have to have a total lockdown of the country. Because the government is fully aware that a total lockdown where everybody is told to stay at them yard for a week or for 2 weeks would mean that the man who earns every day to live the next day would have a difficulty because he's going to be hungry by day 2,
exactly,
by day 3. And unless you're going to find a way to feed him, and we do a lot of that too, then he's going to go out to look food for his family and his children.
Exactly.
So you can't pretend that that don't exist, Kevin. So, which is why we quarantine a community or a parish and we haven't taken the decision to quarantine the full country, even though from addressing the virus perspective, it may be the best approach. But how practical is it when you have those other circumstances? So it leads us back to key influencers in the community and the role of organizations like the church, like the SDC under local government and community development, like the main shopkeeper who has influence, like the MPs and the councillors. We have to use key influencers, firstly, to understand the message, and secondly, to carry that message so that even if you can't social distance when you're in the room, you must make sure you go in the room with your hand well washed. And, you know, it means that we have to be our brother's keeper too. And the principles of Christianity are very clear, that where we can help somebody else, we must help them, because this is a time of need. This is humanity under threat. And, you know, our moral fundamental principles and teachings tell us that we have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah. And that's a message I think that the church can push, and it will resonate, because ultimately Jamaicans are good people and they will help each other where they can. And if a man earns for 3 days and another one for one, and him can help that man to share, I certainly would encourage and promote that as part of the solution to overcome this challenge.
I have some questions from social media, sir. Some very short questions. Why are no care packages being distributed in Portmore?
Well, I'd have to check to see if there are none. If there are particular communities that are extremely vulnerable, then they would qualify for care packages. I don't know that no community has been identified that meets that mark. What I will say though is that members of parliament, and I'm one of them, all members of parliament have been given an allocation for support under this COVID response. And I certainly, in terms of my constituency, I'm in St. Catherine too, by the way, I use my allocation to prepare care packages and distribute it to the most vulnerable. So all the other MPs could be in a position to do that because we did get an allocation. But of course, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security can do some of that too. And I will check on that to see whether or not they have been doing that.
Somebody said on the page that care packages were distributed. Okay.
They would know a little more than me, obviously, but I would happily check. But I know the team is on the ground and they assess and respond as the need arises.
Is it true that children will repeat their grades? I'm not sure if that's your portfolio. I'm not sure if there's a question.
Is it true what?
Is it true that children will repeat their grades after this?
I have not been given that brief at all. I don't know that that is the case. As far as I know, the Ministry of Education, Minister Samuda, has been very clear that students are to be given online courses while they're at home. And I know that that is happening. Whether or not we need to promote a repeat of a course or otherwise, that's something that will be determined in time. Because, you know, there's a lot in this that we don't have control over, you know, Kevin. We are faced with a spread of a virus that could last a week, 2 weeks more. It could last a month or 2 months. If you look elsewhere in the world, in America, for example, where it is so challenging, it really is a function of how we manage it. And that's why it's so important for people to follow the instructions that we give. But I suspect that the issue of teaching and education will be assessed as we go along each day and each week, and a determination made. But right now I know there's a lot of online courses taking place.
You know, thank you for that. I mean, people would want, I want to just take this time to say this. As Jamaicans, I'm encouraging everybody to play their part. I know a lot of us have a lot to say about the government and about, you know, all that is being done. But as somebody who's grown up and has been through a lot, I've had my share of trouble. and I've had my share of having to do without and having to sacrifice. I'm asking everybody on the page to do your part.
Yeah, so welcome back, our viewers and subs. Yeah, Kevin Downswell and the Minister of Health, Christopher Tufton. Yeah, today was there live discussing about the 4-year-old and a lot more stuff during this crisis, this COVID-19 that we are fighting. But viewers and subs, I don't know, I'm not keep up no more time. Peace and bless up, and we out, up top.
And them for no side, Ahmeds, representing for Just Blacks. Just Blacks tell them say prayer works. When the heathens are trying for you, once you die you hurt, the most I alert. If I them alone, them alone. Yeah man, Just Blacks, you don't know your success getting them upset, you know what I mean?